But the thing that really stuck out to me that captured my energy and interest was the separation of state and money. That was the thing that got me excited.
Gotcha.
Because at that point, you start to look at some of these big issues that are facing the United States and really the whole West and much of the world, with debt, entitlements, money printing, stealing, all of these bad things. And when you think about what could be on a sound money standard, the thing that gets me really exciting is the restoration of the private sector's most valuable control mechanism over the public sector. The fact that the public sector is supposed to ask nicely of the private sector for money when they want to do something on behalf of collective is really how it's supposed to work, right? Because how can the beast grow if it doesn't have money? If it has no money to do whatever it is that they want to do, it forces them to actually think about their decisions. And when you can run the money printer, you can scale any idea, bad ones, good ones poorly. You can start to consolidate power. I mean, you've got the federal government trying to do the job of a neighborhood association right now. Come on. That is just not going to work. You are so far away from whatever job that you're trying to do. There is no accountability. You can't effectively do the job. And a sound money standard forces the federal government to prioritize what they should actually be doing. And then all of these smaller things get pushed down to the state, municipality, neighborhood association, and then they can actually be effective with the money that they collect. And effective with the asking of the money.
No, that's an excellent point. I've described it a few different ways. One is obviously it's the profit and loss statement that makes a business be accountable to the preferences of their customers, right? Because your customers are telling you, right?
It's the signal.
You're doing good and serving me well, or you're not, right? You're deploying this capital profitably in a way that solves people's problems, or you're not. And if you can print money, then you obfuscate that signal. So then all of a sudden, if you're a business that can print money, you don't care what your customers think. That's what the federal government is, right? It's a business that can print money. So therefore, they don't care what their customers think. And that's why, surprise, surprise, people don't trust their government, don't like their government, et cetera, et cetera. Another way to say it is removing the money printer from federal government moves us back toward being the constitutional republic we were founded as, right?
That's right.
With strong local state sovereignty, as you said, really doing everything you can government-wise at the local level, centralizing only really national defense, right? Was like, what else were they doing? Pre-Fed, right?
I'm sure it has evolved over time, but I think at the end of the day, the further you are from the actual individuals, the more libertarian you have to be in your policy choices. The closer you are, including in the family, right? I can be very specific with the decisions and the policies and the way we spend the money. And
very communist, right? Like you'll just give stuff to your kids or even take stuff from them, right? But at the national level,
I don't like to use that word, but I think that the idea, the spirit of that is correct.
That's Taleb writes about that in one of his books. He goes, when you're at the federal level, like if you're at the local level, you have some face-to-face interaction, presumably with your local governor. But at the federal level, you're just a row on a spreadsheet. So it's like there is no empathy there.
And then if you get an authoritarian that comes into a consolidated federal government, I mean, they're going to have a heyday. And of course, their policy is always, you've got to break some eggs to make an omelet.
Well,
right?
That sounds like...
Or, the ends justify the means. No. It doesn't work like that.
That sounds like a recipe for atrocities. So you are a libertarian at heart then?
I think that, my source code is libertarian. And the way that we operate is as a Republican. Oh, yeah.
And... So libertarian source code was installed pre-Bitcoin for you, or is this a post-Bitcoin development?
That's from my earliest memory.
Earliest memory. Okay. So who are the big inspirations for you in libertarianism?
Well, I think the big inspiration is actually my mom and my dad, and the example that they set for me. And furthermore, her upbringing in South Mississippi and the way that they lived their life was the example that I watched. And it was personal responsibility, and it was fiscal responsibility, and it was all of these virtuous things that I got to see lived out in real life. And I think that's what writes your source code.
Yeah. That's great. So was she studying, I guess your mother and your father, were they studying libertarianism when they were younger? And then,
I don't know. I don't know that I ever saw them reading any particular libertarian book. I would say that the Bible is a liberty-based book, right? And I don't necessarily want to get hung up on the word libertarian, because then you start to think about the Libertarian Party as a
it's been politicized,
right? Yeah, exactly. So
you could go with anarcho-capitalist if you're so inclined.
Man, I don't even want to go there. That is one thing that I think some Bitcoiners make a mistake on, and it's where they have, anarcho-utopianism, where they think that they can isolate to their citadel and live out their lives. And I'm like, guys, the instant one other person shows up to that farm, you're divvying up public sector responsibilities immediately.
Right.
And voila, you got your government right there.
Yeah. Once you have to protect something, you have to figure it out. It does.
Yeah. There is not a world without a functioning government. It just does not exist. And so it makes sense to pay attention to what has worked. Yeah. What the Bible says. And have a system that allows us to thrive. Yeah.
And so what then, sorry to get hung up on the right word, but I'm trying to understand your views. Is it, what do they call this? Minarchist? Is it where you're like a minimal but necessary central government, strong local government? Would this be?
I've never heard that phrase, but that seems to capture the spirit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then Bitcoin is the tool that gets us there.
I think so. Yeah.
How does that transition look?
I've had a few conversations about that over the last few days as people have come together. I think just the fact that Bitcoin exists creates a blow-off valve that can store all the value that needs to be stored. And that exists today, thankfully. Because if something were to happen and people did need to move value quickly, we could do that, which is great. The price would go berserk, but it exists and it functions. Thank goodness. With regards to how the United States moves back to a system of sound money, and I think that's really the thing to focus on, because there's always the chance that the United States never touches Bitcoin. Maybe they decide as a federal government that they do not want to be the custodian. And I think that's a total reality, but they also could return to some sort of sound money standard. The fact that Bitcoin has the ability to meet the needs of a global economy today as it functions, I think that makes it the obvious tool. Yeah, gold's been tried. You can't transact real estate. Oil's not going to function like that. There's no other thing that exists that meets these needs. Yeah.
And so do you think this is playing... All right, so for instance, we're in Nashville for Bitcoin 2024. Trump is speaking Saturday at 2 p.m. I would guess we could describe him as a recent convert to Bitcoin. Obviously, this has something to do with was it $100 million campaign fund that was raised on his behalf by Bitcoiners? Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
I hadn't heard that number, but I am sure, I know for a fact that there are Bitcoiners that are raising money. And I think that's an important part to show Trump that this industry is serious. And these are real business people, and they are really raising money. And then you've got people like my mom and people like the BPI people and David Bailey and everybody else that is feeding Trump some sort of signal. And just like with any orange pilling, it's never just one person.
Sure.
Right. People play a different role in that decision support and that process. The fact that Trump is open to this is a really great signal. What is going on inside of Trump's head? Nobody knows.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters. We know what we know right now, and we're going to see what happens on Saturday. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be lit for sure. Well, to that point, none of us ever know what is going on in anyone else's head. We probably don't even know what's going on inside of our own head most of the time. But that's a good point too, with the orange pilling. It's like it's usually not just one person that orange pills. It's,
right.
You kind of triangulate truth amongst multiple people. But it's also not just the people sharing a narrative with you or sharing their perspectives or their bull case for Bitcoin. There's also the economic component where I think even if you understood Bitcoin philosophically, economically, technically, very deeply, and had deep conviction in it, if you bought it and it just continued to decline in price, that you might get shaken out of your conviction at some point, right? Like, so people's conviction, I would argue, gets hardened by purchasing power gains and softened by purchasing power losses. Do you think this is how Bitcoin eats the world? Is that it keeps, like, Bitcoin's serving the self-interest of someone like Trump right now, right?
Right.
Well, he has a bid to be reelected, and now there's Bitcoiners that are raising money to help him attain that aim. Is this how Bitcoin eats the world, that it just keeps solving people's individual self-interest, and then that case is reinforced as Bitcoin? Like, it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing, because then more people buy it and then its purchasing power goes up, which then makes it work better for individuals.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head when you talk about it really is at the individual level. And the fact that Bitcoin is decentralized, I think creates a situation where people come to it. It solves a problem for them, whatever it is, whatever reason it is that they're orange pilled so much that they're going to give away their USDs in exchange for Bitcoin, right? That takes all kinds. And I would think for somebody older, like any of these politicians, it's going to be a much slower journey. No doubt about it. Yeah. But you're going to chip away at it with every positive data point. Yeah. Volatility is scary, though.
Oh, yeah, you think that keeps people at bay? Well, yeah.
I think it keeps people questioning. I think that questioning their conviction, but I think ultimately it can serve as something that hardens their conviction. I mean, you talk to any Bitcoiner that's been through a couple of bear markets, right? I mean, that's a level of conviction that you know when you see it.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.